They buried the evidence. We dig it up. What you're about to see will change everything you thought you knew about ancient civilizations. In November 2024, archaeologists extracted DNA from 2,000-year-old teeth found in Pompeii's volcanic ash. The results shattered every story we've told about these victims for 150 years. The mother and child? Neither mother nor child. The embracing sisters? Not sisters. Not even women. This is the Artifacts Detective, and today we're investigating how ancient DNA extracted from archaeological specimens is rewriting human history. Welcome to the Artifacts Detective, where we investigate history's greatest mysteries through archaeological evidence. I'm your host, and today we're examining groundbreaking DNA analysis from archaeological sites across 5 continents. This investigation represents the culmination of decades of scientific advancement, where genetics meets archaeology to reveal truths buried for millennia. We'll examine the archaeological evidence from Pompeii's plaster casts and their preserved dental remains, Viking burial sites from Greenland to Ukraine, medieval plague pits and their bacterial DNA, Egyptian mummies spanning 3,000 years, and mysterious remains from the Tarim Basin and beyond. We'll explore Ice Age hunters and their genetic legacy, Pacific island populations and their impossible journeys, and African archaeological sites revealing humanity's deepest roots. Each discovery challenges fundamental assumptions about ancient peoples, their relationships, their movements, and their very identity. The evidence we'll present comes from peer-reviewed studies published in journals like Nature, Current Biology, and Cell, verified archaeological contexts, and the world's leading research institutions including Harvard Medical School, the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, and the University of Copenhagen. But first, let me show you something that will make you question everything you thought you knew about reading the past. For 2 centuries, archaeologists have excavated, catalogued, and interpreted human remains based on visible evidence. Burial goods suggested gender, proximity implied relationships, artistic depictions defined appearance. We built entire narratives around these assumptions. Consider how archaeological interpretation traditionally worked. An excavator uncovers a skeleton. Nearby lie grave goods, perhaps jewelry, weapons, or pottery. The skeleton's position relative to others suggests relationships, where patterns on bones hint at occupations. From these clues, archaeologists reconstruct lives, societies, entire civilizations. But traditional archaeology had significant limitations. Skeletal sex determination proved accurate only 80 to 90% of the time. Age estimation could vary by 10 years or more in adults. Pathology identification missed diseases that didn't affect bones. Population affinity based on cranial measurements proved unreliable. Family relationships remained purely speculative without genetics. Migration patterns were inferred from artifact styles alone. These limitations led to systematic biases that shaped our understanding for generations. Victorian-era archaeologists projected their own social structures onto ancient remains. Colonial period excavators interpreted everything through racial hierarchies. Even modern archaeologists unconsciously applied contemporary assumptions about gender, family, and society to ancient contexts. But in the last decade, a revolution in archaeological science has given us a new tool, ancient DNA analysis. Like a genetic time machine, it allows us to extract and read DNA from specimens thousands of years old. And what we're finding is overturning fundamental assumptions about ancient peoples. The technology behind this revolution deserves recognition. Ancient DNA degrades over time, breaking into fragments sometimes only 30 to 50 base pairs long. Modern contamination poses constant threats. Yet through ultra-clean laboratories with positive pressure systems preventing contamination, UV sterilization between samples, full-body suits for researchers, and separate pre- and post-PCR facilities, Scientists can now reconstruct entire genomes from these fragments. The journey from the first ancient DNA extracted from an extinct quagga in 1984 to today's routine whole genome sequencing represents one of science's great triumphs. When researchers sequenced the first Neanderthal mitochondrial DNA in 1997, it opened a window into humanity's deep past. The complete Neanderthal genome published in 2010 revolutionized our understanding of human evolution. By 2020, scientists were extracting DNA from 1.2 million-year-old mammoth remains. Today, AI-powered reconstruction fills genomic gaps, pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Dr. Svante Pääbo, Nobel laureate and ancient DNA pioneer, explained the significance. Every advance in technology opens new windows into the past. We can now answer questions that archaeologists could only dream about 20 years ago. Let's begin with Pompeii, where in November 2024, a team from Harvard Medical School, the University of Florence, and the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology published results that shocked the archaeological world. According to research published in Current Biology on November 7, 2024, scientists successfully extracted DNA from 14 of the 86 plaster casts undergoing restoration. The key to their success was dental pulp, genetic material protected inside tooth enamel that survived nearly 2,000 years. The archaeological context is crucial here. When Mount Vesuvius erupted on August 24, 79 CE, it created one of history's most perfectly preserved disaster sites. The eruption began around 1 p.m. with a column of pumice and ash rising 20 kilometers into the atmosphere. For approximately 18 hours, Pompeii was bombarded with falling pumice. Then came the pyroclastic surges, superheated clouds of gas and volcanic matter moving at speeds up to 700 kilometers per hour, with temperatures exceeding 500 degrees Celsius. Recent volcanological studies using thermal magnetic analysis have revealed the precise temperatures of each surge. The first surge reached 300 to 360 degrees Celsius and struck the city walls. The second, cooler at 180 to 220 degrees Celsius, entered northern sectors. By the fourth surge, temperatures had risen to 480 to 520 degrees Celsius, covering the entire city. The final surges deposited thick layers at temperatures exceeding 550 degrees Celsius. These temperatures should have destroyed all organic material. Yet preservation occurred through rapid mineralization. The extreme heat instantly dehydrated soft tissues, while volcanic ash created an alkaline environment preventing bacterial decay. Teeth, with their enamel protection, became time capsules preserving DNA. The eruption timeline has been reconstructed from archaeological evidence with remarkable precision. The initial explosion at 1 p.m. created a Plinian column that began dropping white pumice on Pompeii by 1:30 p.m. Through the afternoon and night, pumice accumulated to depths of 2.8 meters. After midnight on August 25th, the eruption entered its grey pumice phase. The first pyroclastic surge arrived at 6:30 a.m., followed by multiple devastating flows that buried everything by 8 a.m. These pyroclastic flows killed Pompeii's residents instantly. The extreme heat caused immediate death, likely within fractions of a second. Bodies underwent cadaveric spasm, fixing them in their final positions. Over time, the bodies decomposed within the hardened volcanic material, leaving perfect cavities that preserved every detail of their final moments. In 1863, archaeologist Giuseppe Fiorelli revolutionized Pompeii studies with a brilliant innovation. Recognizing these cavities as negative spaces left by decomposed bodies, he developed a technique of injecting liquid plaster into the voids. The process required careful detection of cavities using probing rods, clearing loose material, creating ventilation holes, mixing plaster to specific consistency, and allowing 48 to 72 hours for setting before excavating the surrounding material to reveal preserved human forms. Later improvements enhanced the technique with transparent resin casts in the 1970s, fiberglass reinforcement in the 1980s, 3D scanning before casting in the 2000s, and micro-CT scanning of casts in the 2020s. These advances allowed increasingly detailed study of the victims while preserving their remains. For 150 years, these casts have been interpreted based on appearance and positioning. Museum placards told stories of mothers protecting children, sisters embracing in their final moments, families huddling together. Tour guides pointed to touching scenes of human love facing catastrophe. These narratives, repeated in countless documentaries and textbooks, became accepted archaeological fact. Specific traditional interpretations shaped our understanding of Roman society. The family of 13 fleeing together in the Garden of Fugitives suggested strong family bonds overcoming self-preservation. Two young sisters embracing in the house of Cryptoporticus implied feminine devotion. The mother shielding infant in the house of Golden Bracelet reinforced maternal instincts. These interpretations suggested Roman family values, maintained even in catastrophe, gender roles preserved until death, and social hierarchies lasting to the final moment. But the DNA evidence tells a completely different story. In the House of the Golden Bracelet, 4 individuals were found together. The traditional interpretation, displayed in museums worldwide, identified an adult wearing an ornate golden bracelet as a mother holding her child. The bracelet, a piece of fine jewelry featuring a snake motif, weighing 610 grams, reinforced assumptions about gender and maternal relationships. The house itself, excavated between 1974 and 1975 under the direction of archaeologist Antonio Varone, represents a wealthy Pompeian dwelling. Located in Region 6, Insula 17, the structure spans 460 square meters with 12 rooms including a garden. Its elaborate 4th-style frescoes depicting mythological scenes, including Perseus and Andromeda, along with water features and bronze vessels, indicated prosperity. The 4 individuals were found in a ground floor room near the garden, apparently seeking shelter from the falling pumice. The genetic analysis revealed shocking truths. The adult with the bracelet was biologically male, aged 35 to 40, with Y chromosome haplogroup J2A1 indicating Eastern Mediterranean ancestry. DNA showed 60% Eastern Mediterranean components, primarily Anatolian and Levantine, 30% North African ancestry suggesting Egyptian or Cyrenaican origins, and 10% Italian peninsular genetics. This profile perfectly matches historical records of Pompeii as a cosmopolitan trading center. The other individuals proved equally surprising. None of the 4 were genetically related. They showed different geographic origins based on isotope analysis, varied dietary patterns based on dental analysis, and bone chemistry suggesting different occupations. Rather than a nuclear family, these were 4 unrelated individuals who happened to die together. Dr. Alyssa Mitnick from Harvard Medical School and the Max Planck Institute explained the significance. This study illustrates how genetic analysis can challenge long-held archaeological interpretations based solely on material culture and positioning. Our assumptions about gender and family relationships in ancient societies need serious reconsideration. The golden bracelet itself provides important context. Analysis reveals it was composed of 97% gold, with 2% silver and 1% copper, consistent with Roman jewelry standards. Manufacturing techniques show lost wax casting with hand-finished details. Wear patterns indicate regular use over many years. As Dr. Sophie Hay from the Archaeological Park of Pompeii noted, the assumption that jewelry indicates female gender reflects modern biases, not Roman reality. Men of status, commonly wore elaborate gold pieces. Historical sources confirm this interpretation. Pliny the Elder, writing just before the eruption, noted that men of the equestrian order wear gold rings and bracelets as marks of their status. The Pompeian man with the bracelet may have been a wealthy merchant or minor official, his Eastern Mediterranean ancestry reflecting Pompeii's role as a major trading hub. The DNA extraction process represents a marvel of modern science. Working in specialized ancient DNA laboratories, researchers followed protocols that would seem extreme to most scientists. The process began with careful documentation, including photography from multiple angles, 3D scanning before sampling, and strict chain of custody documentation. Surface decontamination involved 30-second bleach immersion, followed by UV irradiation at 254 nanometers for 15 minutes on each side. Scientists used diamond blade saws for tooth sectioning, accessing the pulp chamber through a lateral approach to preserve tooth structure. The precious powder was collected in sterile tubes and immediately frozen at -80 degrees Celsius. The extraction protocol pushed the boundaries of molecular biology. Decalcification in EDTA solution prepared the samples for proteinase K digestion. Silica-based purification concentrated the ancient DNA. Library preparation involved blunt end repair of damaged fragments, adapter ligation with unique barcodes, and careful amplification to avoid losing precious material. The sequencing strategy began with initial screening via shotgun sequencing to assess DNA preservation. Targeted capture enriched human DNA from the mass of environmental contamination. Deep sequencing on Illumina platforms generated billions of reads. Multiple libraries per individual ensured reproducibility. Bioinformatic analysis confirmed the ancient origin of the DNA through characteristic damage patterns. C to T transitions at fragment ends, typical of ancient DNA, appeared throughout. Short fragment lengths averaging 47 base pairs confirmed extreme age. Minimal modern human contamination, less than 3%, validated the results. The challenges were immense. Heat from the pyroclastic flows should have destroyed all organic material, yet somehow, protected within tooth roots, enough DNA survived. The team sequenced over 500 million DNA fragments per individual, assembling genetic profiles detailed enough to determine ancestry, biological sex, and family relationships. This discovery aligns with findings from another Pompeian structure that has captivated visitors for over a century. In the House of the Cryptoporticus, 2 plaster casts have been known since 1914 as the Two Sisters, or the Two Maidens. The excavation, led by Vittorio Spinazzola, uncovered these figures in the home's underground passageway. Spinazzola's journal entries from May 1914 capture the discovery's emotional impact. He described encountering voids in volcanic material at 4.2 meters depth, the careful plaster injection process, and the revelation of 2 figures in close embrace. The smaller figure rested its head on the larger figure's chest, arms wrapped around each other in what Spinazzola called the most touching scene yet discovered. The traditional interpretation, maintained for over a century, described these as 2 young women, possibly sisters or close friends, dying in each other's arms. Victorian-era sensibilities particularly embraced this narrative of feminine devotion in the face of death. Museum displays and tour guides repeated this story to millions of visitors. The genetic analysis revealed a completely different reality. Both individuals were biological males, one aged 18 to 22, with haplogroup J2A1 indicating Anatolian ancestry, the other aged 15 to 18 with haplogroup E1B1B suggesting North African ancestry. No maternal or paternal relationship existed between them. Different geographic origins appeared in isotope analysis. Different dietary patterns emerged from dental analysis. Dr. David Caramelli from the University of Florence reflected on the implications. These findings challenged traditional gender and familial assumptions. The genetic data adds complexity to the simple kinship narratives that have dominated prior analyses of Pompeii's victims. The cultural context helps explain the misinterpretation. Roman sources indicate physical affection between men was culturally acceptable. Cicero describes embracing male friends. Pliny writes of men holding hands in public. Funeral reliefs show men in close contact. Military traditions included embracing comrades. No stigma attached to male emotional display in Roman society. Another significant discovery comes from the famous Villa of the Mysteries, located outside Pompeii's walls. This luxurious villa, spanning over 3,000 square meters, is renowned for its fresco cycle depicting Dionysian mysteries. Wine production facilities confirm its function as a working farm alongside luxury residential quarters. 3 plaster casts found in the 1920s were discovered in a service corridor near the wine production area. Amadeo Maiuri's 1929 interpretation suggested a family group: elderly matron, younger woman, daughter or servant, and adolescent, grandchild or slave. The narrative fit perfectly with the villa's domestic spaces and the Roman ideal of the multi-generational household. DNA analysis in 2024 revealed the truth. Individual 1 was male, aged 45 to 50, with local Italian ancestry. Individual 2 was female, aged 30 to 35, with Greek ancestry from the Eastern Aegean. Individual 3 was male, aged 14 to 16, with mixed Italian-Greek ancestry. Only individuals 2 and 3 showed biological relationship, mother and son. The older male, despite dying mere meters away, showed no genetic connection. Isotope analysis revealed deeper complexities. Strontium isotopes indicated individual 1 was local born, had lived in the villa for at least a decade based on oxygen isotope patterns, but showed lead exposure patterns suggesting different occupations from the others. Rather than a family patriarch, he was likely a trusted slave or freedman managing the estate. Gabriel Zuchtriegel, current director of the Pompeii Archaeological Park, emphasized the broader implications. The park's in-house laboratory conducts a variety of analyses to offer a comprehensive and scientifically updated interpretation of the findings. DNA analysis now plays a central role in Pompeii's research initiatives. A 2024 reanalysis of casts from the suburban baths revealed perhaps the most surprising findings. These baths, located outside the Marine Gate, served travelers and lower-class residents. 7 casts discovered in 1980 were interpreted as a fleeing family group, parents with children and elderly grandparents overwhelmed while trying to escape. DNA analysis shattered this interpretation entirely. No individuals were related. Origins spanned the Mediterranean, from North Africa to Anatolia to the Italian peninsula. Ages ranged from 8 to 60 years. Isotope data revealed a mix of social classes. Dental wear patterns suggested 3 different language groups based on dietary traditions. This group likely represents strangers who happened to be using the public baths when the eruption began. Their death together was coincidence, not family tragedy. As Dr. David Reich from Harvard noted, the scientific data we provide do not always align with common assumptions. When you take this new scientific tool, you see things that are quite different than traditional reconstructions. These Pompeii findings challenge our fundamental understanding of Roman society. Rather than the nuclear families projected by early excavators, we see a cosmopolitan population where unrelated individuals lived and died together. Pompeii emerges not as a collection of traditional households, but as a dynamic commercial hub where merchants from across the Mediterranean, freedmen and slaves, locals and immigrants, all mingled in life and death. The implications extend far beyond Pompeii. If DNA can so thoroughly revise our understanding of one of history's best preserved sites, what other archaeological interpretations await revision? How many museum displays worldwide present fiction as fact? How many textbooks need rewriting? So far, we've established that DNA evidence is overturning long-held assumptions about Pompeii's victims. But the real investigation expands beyond Pompeii to examine evidence hiding in plain sight throughout the Roman world and beyond. Let's expand our investigation beyond Pompeii to examine how DNA evidence transforms our understanding of the broader ancient world. While Pompeii captures public imagination, nearby Herculaneum offers even better DNA preservation. The different volcanic processes that destroyed Herculaneum created unique preservation conditions. Located just 5 kilometers from Vesuvius compared to Pompeii's 10, Herculaneum was hit by pyroclastic surges exceeding 500 degrees Celsius that instantly carbonized organic material. Bodies found in boat chambers at the beach were buried up to 25 meters deep, creating perfect preservation conditions. The boat chamber discoveries of 1980 to 1982 shocked archaeologists who had previously thought Herculaneum was successfully evacuated. Over 300 skeletons in barrel-vaulted chambers along the ancient beach told a different story. Traditional interpretations suggested family groups huddling in chambers, social hierarchy maintained with rich and poor in separate chambers, women and children separated from men in an orderly evacuation attempt. But 2023 to 2024 DNA analysis by researchers from the University of Naples told a different story. Of 62 individuals tested across 12 boat chambers, only scattered family relationships emerged. In Chamber A's 12 individuals, only 2 were genetically related, a mother and daughter. The remaining 10 represented 7 different ancestral origins with mixed ages and sexes, showing no correlation between position and relationship. Chamber B's 18 individuals included one family group of 4, parents with 2 children. But the remaining 14 were unrelated, showing evidence of recent arrival to the city based on isotope analysis, with diverse genetic backgrounds spanning the Mediterranean. The famous Ring Lady, Herculaneum's most photographed skeleton, provided perhaps the biggest surprise. Found with elaborate gold rings and jewelry, she was long assumed to be a wealthy Roman matron. DNA revealed a young male, aged 20 to 25, with North African ancestry, likely a merchant or freedman. As Dr. Pierpaolo Petroni from University of Naples Federico II observed, Herculaneum shows us that Roman society was far more fluid than believed. In death's democracy, social status mattered less than proximity. The second major DNA revolution comes from Viking archaeology. In September 2020, Nature published Population Genomics of the Viking World. The largest genetic study of Viking remains ever conducted. The 6-year project, led by Dr. Esk Willerslev from the University of Cambridge, analysed 442 Viking Age individuals from archaeological sites spanning the known Viking world. The study's scope was unprecedented. Scandinavian sites included the famous Salm ship burials in Estonia with 41 individuals, the trading centre of Birka in Sweden with 23 individuals, and various Norwegian burial sites contributing 89 individuals. Expansion area sites stretched from Greenland's Norse settlements with 37 individuals to Dublin's Viking cemetery with 12 individuals. Eastern route sites included Gnezdovo in Russia and Kiev region sites, revealing the vast extent of Viking influence. Dr. Willerslev's statement captured the significance. The results changed the perception of who a Viking actually was. The history books will need to be updated. One of the most shocking discoveries came from archaeological excavations at Buckquoy and Westness in Orkney. These sites, excavated between 1976 and 1984, showed all the hallmarks of Norse culture. Boat-shaped stone settings oriented east-west, grave goods including swords with Norwegian-style hilts, shield bosses matching Scandinavian examples, and bone combs with runic inscriptions all pointed to Viking burials. The chieftain burial at Buckroy exemplified these assumptions. The boat-shaped stone setting stretched 5.2 meters long. Inside lay a warrior with a sword featuring decorated pommel in Peterson-type H style, spearhead with pattern-welded blade, bronze penannular brooch, gaming pieces of walrus ivory, and partial horse skeleton indicating high status. Traditional interpretation identified him as a Norse warrior chief claiming Orkney territory. DNA analysis from Oxford University's ancient DNA laboratory shattered this interpretation. The chieftain showed 100% indigenous Pictish ancestry with local isotope signatures throughout life. No Scandinavian genetic component appeared despite the thoroughly Norse material culture. The same pattern repeated across the cemetery. 73% were entirely local Pictish Scottish, while 27% showed only minor Scandinavian admixture of 5 to 15%. Dr. Kat Jarman from the Museum of Cultural History, Oslo, explained the revolutionary implications. This fundamentally changes our understanding of Viking expansion. It wasn't just Scandinavians spreading their culture. Local populations actively adopted and participated in Viking identity. Being Viking was about culture, not genetics. The Westness Cemetery provided additional evidence. Of 32 burials with Norse grave goods, DNA analysis revealed local Orcadians adopting Viking burial customs wholesale. Women buried with oval brooches, classic Viking female indicators, proved to be local women with no Scandinavian ancestry. Warriors with swords and shields were Pictish men who had embraced Norse identity. This evidence resonates with linguistic studies showing Norse place names overlaying Pictish ones, bilingual inscriptions demonstrating cultural mixing, runic stones carved by locals, hybrid art styles emerging from cultural fusion, and language shift occurring without population replacement. The psalm ships discovered in Estonia provide a dramatic contrast to Orkney's cultural Vikings. These two clinker-built vessels, buried around 750 CE, contained 41 male skeletons in what appeared to be a catastrophic single event. The archaeological evidence painted a picture of elite warriors. Ship 2, the larger vessel at 17.5 meters long, contained 34 individuals stacked in 4 deliberate layers. 40 double-edged swords of the highest quality were found, along with shields stacked along the gunwales. Gaming pieces from at least 4 different sets suggested leisure activities during long voyages. Personal items including 27 bone combs, whetstones of Norwegian schist, and bronze ornaments indicated well-equipped warriors. The burial showed careful arrangement, suggesting deep knowledge of the deceased. The highest status individual, identified by sword quality and position, lay at the center with a sword across his chest and a gaming piece in his mouth, possibly a king piece indicating leadership. Genetic analysis by the University of Copenhagen revealed a heartbreaking human story that brings these ancient warriors to life. 4 brothers were identified through Y chromosome and autosomal DNA, aged approximately 20, 25, 30, and 35. 6 other first-degree relatives emerged, fathers and sons or additional brothers. Multiple second- and third-degree relatives rounded out the group. All originated from the Mälaren Valley in eastern Sweden, confirmed by isotope analysis showing shared childhood location. Trauma analysis revealed the battle's brutal progression. Initial arrow wounds on 8 individuals suggested an ambush or ranged combat phase. Defensive parry injuries on arms showed close combat. Fatal sword strikes to heads and torsos ended their lives. No healing was observed. All died within hours of the battle. Some bodies showed evidence of multiple attackers, and coup de grace blows indicated battlefield executions. Dr. Juri Peets from Tallinn University captured the human tragedy. This represents an entire generation of a small Swedish community lost in a single failed raid. The careful burial by survivors suggests deep bonds between the raiders. They took time to honor their dead despite obvious danger. The tragedy becomes even more poignant when we consider that someone sailed home to Sweden with news that would have devastated an entire community. 4 brothers from one family, dead on a distant shore. Fathers and sons who would never return. An entire generation of young men from one small valley, wiped out in a single day. The comprehensive Viking study revealed far more genetic diversity than anyone imagined. Analysis of physical appearance genes provided concrete data challenging stereotypes. Only 30% of Vikings carried blonde hair alleles, while 45% had brown hair genes, 15% black hair alleles, and 10% red hair variants. Eye colour proved equally diverse, with 40% brown, 35% blue, and 25% green or hazel. Skin pigmentation varied significantly across populations. Regional genetic patterns emerged with striking clarity. Norwegian Vikings showed the highest Scandinavian ancestry at 65 to 80%, with 10 to 20% Finnish Sami admixture reflecting northern contacts. They dominated Atlantic expansion to Iceland, Greenland, and beyond. Danish Vikings displayed more diversity with 50 to 70% Scandinavian ancestry, mixed with 20 to 30% Central European components. They focused expansion on England and France. Swedish Vikings showed 60 to 75% Scandinavian ancestry, with significant Baltic and Slavic admixture, specializing in eastern expansion through Russian river systems. Perhaps most surprisingly, British Isles Vikings showed highly variable ancestry. Within single cemeteries, individuals ranged from 20 to 60% Scandinavian ancestry, with the remainder being local British or Irish genetics. These were cultural Vikings with genetic locals, proving identity came through adoption rather than birth. The question of female Viking warriors, long debated, found resolution through DNA. The famous Birka warrior grave, BJ Point 581, excavated in 1878, contained a full weapons set, including sword, axe, spear, arrows, 2 shields, and 2 horses. Gaming pieces suggested command responsibilities. For 140 years, this was assumed to be a male warrior. 2017 DNA analysis revealed the truth. This was a biological female with no Y chromosome present. High-status diet isotopes and extensive travel patterns confirmed this was no accidental burial, but a woman who lived as a warrior. Additional confirmed female warrior burials emerged across the Viking world, 3 in Norway, 2 in Denmark, with 3 more probable, 4 in Sweden beyond Birka, 1 in Repton, England, and 2 in Russian trading posts. Dr. Charlotte Heidenstierna Jonsson from Uppsala University provided crucial context. Female warriors weren't common, but they weren't mythological either. DNA forces us to confront our biases about gender roles in Viking society. Dr. Ashok Margarian, first author of the Nature Study, summarized a key finding that challenges popular perception. Scandinavians were more likely to have black hair than blonde during the Viking Age. The stereotype comes from later periods and nationalist mythology, not historical reality. The Viking DNA evidence reveals a complex multicultural phenomenon where identity was earned, not inherited. But ancient DNA doesn't just tell us about people. It also reveals the diseases that shaped history. The third revolution comes from pathogen DNA extracted from plague victims. This investigation reveals how disease shaped human history in ways we're only beginning to understand. The Black Death of 1347 to 1353 killed an estimated 75 to 200 million people across Eurasia. Mass burial sites from this pandemic provide crucial evidence for understanding disease evolution. But the story begins much earlier than previously thought. In July 2024, Swedish researchers from Stockholm University published revolutionary findings in Cell. The Frälsegården passage grave in Sweden, dated to 2900 BCE, yielded extraordinary evidence. This Neolithic tomb, used normally for 200 years, suddenly received 78 bodies in a mass burial event. All ages and sexes were affected with no signs of trauma. Contemporary archaeological evidence showed cultural changes occurring simultaneously. The shocking discovery: 17% of individuals carried Y. pestis DNA, the bacterium causing plague. This pushed back plague's impact on European populations by 3,000 years. The nearby Gökem site revealed similar patterns. A farming community from 2900 BCE showed sudden abandonment. Multiple plague strains were found in family groups who died together. Fields were left unharvested and animals died in pens. Dr. Fredrik Searsholm explained the significance. This pushes back plague's impact on European populations by 3,000 years and may explain the mysterious Neolithic decline that saw Europe's first farmers largely disappear. The prehistoric plague differed significantly from its medieval descendant. It lacked the YMT gene, enabling flea transmission, spreading only through direct human contact or contaminated food and water. Despite lower transmissibility, it proved devastating. 3 distinct infection waves have been identified at 3,300, 3,000, and 2,800 BCE, corresponding with archaeological evidence of settlement abandonment across Europe. The Neolithic population decline becomes visible through multiple lines of evidence. Settlement numbers dropped 60% between 3,000 to 2,500 BCE. Megasites housing up to 10,000 people were abandoned. Radiocarbon date frequencies plummet, indicating population crash. Farming intensity decreased while forests regenerated. Britain experienced 50% population decline during this period. Ireland saw farming collapse. Scandinavia shifted from agriculture to pastoralism. Central Europe's population fragmented into smaller groups. Moving forward in time, the 2024 study in Nature Communications revealed how plague evolved during the Black Death itself. Using new technical innovations, researchers overcame the traditional problem that pathogen DNA comprises less than 0.1% of archaeological samples. RNA baits targeting Y. pestis genes specifically captured pathogen DNA, enriching it from 0.1% to 60%. This enabled whole genome reconstruction and authentication through characteristic damage patterns. The East Smithfield Emergency Cemetery in London provided crucial evidence. Created specifically for plague victims in 1348 by Edward III, it contained over 2,400 burials in organised rows. Royal Foundation with documented dates and exceptional preservation in London, clay allowed DNA extraction from 20 individuals. The cemetery's creation, costing £52 and consecrated by the Archbishop of Canterbury, showed how authorities tried maintaining Christian burial even during catastrophe. The evolution of plague during the pandemic proved remarkable. Early strains from 1348 were hypervirulent, killing hosts in 3 to 5 days, but limiting transmission time. The critical plague gene encoding plasminogen activator showed specific mutations. The I259T mutation emerged in 1348 to 1349, enhancing bacterial spreading. By 1350 to 1353, later strains had evolved reduced virulence, allowing hosts to survive 7 to 10 days. This enhanced transmission window allowed more pneumonic plague development and better human-to-human spread. Dr. Maria Spiro from the Max Planck Institute explained, "The plague bacterium evolved during the Black Death to become less immediately lethal but more transmissible. Its evolution in real time, visible in ancient DNA. A shocking 2024 discovery extended plague's reach to ancient Africa. Researchers analysing a 3,290-year-old Egyptian mummy from Abu Sir el-Melek found Y. pestis DNA in intestinal tissue. The victim, an adult male aged 35 to 40 named Horem Heb, held the title Overseer of Royal Cattle. His elite burial with canopic jars and gold amulets showed high status. Yet plague killed him during the bacteremic phase, evidenced by Y. pestis DNA in multiple organs, spleen damage, lymph node calcifications, and intestinal plague lesions. This discovery suddenly illuminated ancient Egyptian medical texts. The Ebers Papyrus from 1550 BCE mentions swellings in the groin that will not heal, black pustules that spread, and death that comes in days. The Edwin Smith Papyrus describes pestilence from the north and sudden deadly fevers, even noting physicians fleeing the infected and recognizing contagion requiring isolation. Dr. Yotam Tsuri from Hebrew University noted the cascading implications. If plague reached Egypt by 1290 BCE, it explains several mysterious population declines and might even relate to biblical accounts of plagues. The implications transform our understanding of ancient trade networks. The same ships carrying copper from Cyprus and cedar from Lebanon could have carried plague-infected rats. Egypt's ports, gateways to wealth, became entry points for disease. Trade routes that brought prosperity also brought death on a scale that shaped civilizations. Plague DNA reveals how disease shaped human history across continents. Now let's examine how DNA from Egyptian mummies is revolutionizing our understanding of ancient populations. The fourth major area involves systematic DNA analysis of Egyptian mummies, revealing surprising truths about one of history's most studied civilizations. The story begins in 1907 when two mummies arrived at the Manchester Museum. Purchased through Sotheby's for £95, they bore hieroglyphic inscriptions identifying them as Khnumnakht and Nakht Ankh, sons of a local governor from Der Riffe, dated to 1800 BCE during Egypt's Middle Kingdom. For 111 years, they were displayed as brothers, their story touching millions of museum visitors. The inscriptions seemed clear. Both coffins proclaimed born of Khnum-Ea and son of the governor. Yet Egyptologists had long noticed anomalies. Khnumnakht showed dolichocephalic, long-headed skull shape, while Nakht Ankh was brachycephalic, round-headed. Height differed by 8 centimeters. Most tellingly, mummification techniques varied. Khnumnakht received elaborate, expensive treatment, while Nakht Ankh's was simpler and quicker. The 2018 study from University of Manchester used cutting-edge DNA extraction, overcoming challenges including high-temperature damage, natron salt degradation, resin contamination, and modern handling contamination. Multiple extraction attempts ensured accuracy. DNA results revealed the truth. Both men shared identical mitochondrial DNA, M1A1 haplogroup, confirming the same mother. But different Y chromosomes, J1A versus R1B, proved different fathers. These were half-brothers presented as full brothers. A deliberate ancient deception preserved for 4,000 years. Dr. Konstantina Drossou explained the implications. This shows how DNA can reveal family dynamics invisible in the archaeological record. The mother had children with 2 men, but presented them as full brothers, probably for inheritance purposes. Egyptian inheritance law provides context. Middle Kingdom legal papyri show primogeniture dominated, with eldest sons inheriting. Full brothers had equal claims to their father's titles and property. Half-brothers faced disputed rights. By presenting her sons as full brothers, Khnum-Ah orchestrated a fraud, ensuring both inherited equally. The most comprehensive ancient Egyptian DNA study began in 2017 and expanded through 2024. German researchers from the Max Planck Institute analyzed 166 mummies from Abu Sir el-Malek, spanning 1,300 years of Egyptian history. This site in Middle Egypt, 100 kilometers south of Cairo, served as a crossroads of trade routes with continuous occupation for millennia. The sampling strategy covered three crucial periods. Pre-Ptolemaic period, 1388 to 332 BCE, with 44 individuals represented traditional Egyptian rule. Ptolemaic period, 332 to 30 BCE, with 27 individuals captured Greek rulers with Egyptian subjects. Roman period, 30 BCE to 395 CE, with 95 individuals showed provincial administration at its peak. Results published in Nature Communications overturned fundamental assumptions. Ancient Egyptians showed 70% Near Eastern ancestry, primarily Levantine and Anatolian, 20% North African indigenous pre-agricultural ancestry, 10% European-related Eastern Mediterranean ancestry, and less than 3% Sub-Saharan African ancestry. This genetic profile remained remarkably stable across 1,300 years. Modern Egyptians tell a different story. Today's population shows only 50% Near Eastern ancestry, while North African increased to 30% and Sub-Saharan African jumped to 15 to 20%. This wasn't gradual change, but a dramatic demographic shift after 400 CE. Dr. Wolfgang Hack stated the shocking conclusion: ancient Egyptians were genetically closer to ancient Europeans and Near Easterners than to modern Egyptians. This wasn't gradual change, but a dramatic demographic shift in the post-Roman period. The timing corresponds with major historical changes, including decline of Mediterranean trade networks, rise of trans-Saharan caravan routes, Arab conquest and migration, 639 to 646 CE, medieval slave trade patterns, and Nubian dynasty influences. Ancient Egypt emerges not as an isolated African civilization, but as a Mediterranean-facing society with deep Near Eastern connections. Royal mummy genetics provided additional surprises. The Amarna royal mummies revealed a dynasty destroying itself through inbreeding. Tutankhamun's parents were full siblings. His genome showed multiple genetic disorders from inbreeding, including cleft palate, clubfoot, severe scoliosis, and feminized appearance. Malaria detected in several royal mummies may have delivered the final blow to an already weakened bloodline. The Ramesses III murder investigation solved a 3,000-year-old mystery. DNA confirmed a deep throat wound was the cause of death. Unknown man E, found in a twisted position suggesting strangulation, proved to be his son Pentuer. Genetic evidence verified the judicial papyrus accounts of a palace conspiracy involving multiple family members. Individual mummies continue revealing surprises. Belfast's Ulster Museum houses Takabuti, a woman from Thebes who died around 660 BCE. Her 2020 DNA analysis revealed she carried the rare H401 mitochondrial haplogroup, making her closer to modern Bedouin than ancient Egyptians. An extra vertebra represented a genetic variant. Most shocking was evidence of violent death. She was stabbed in the back with the blade puncturing her lung, a murder missed for over 180 years of study. Professor Eileen Murphy reflected on the implications. Takabuti's DNA shows how cosmopolitan ancient Thebes was. People we assume were Egyptian might have been first or second generation immigrants who had fully adopted Egyptian culture. Egyptian DNA reveals population complexities we never imagined, with ancient Egyptians more closely related to Near Easterners than modern Egyptians. Our investigation now takes us to the edges of the ancient world, where impossible populations survived in isolation. In the Taklamakan Desert of Western China lies one of archaeology's most puzzling mysteries. The Tarim mummies, dating back 4,000 years, challenged everything we thought we knew about ancient Eurasian populations. European explorers first reported these preserved bodies in 1895. Systematic study began with Volker Bergmann in 1934. By the 1980s, major excavations had recovered over 500 mummies from various sites. The Xiaohe Cemetery, most enigmatic of all, yielded 330 burials dated 4,000 to 3,500 years old, with boat-shaped coffins and striking phallic and vulvic symbols. The mystery deepened with each discovery. These ancient people appeared European with light hair colours, 35% blonde, 25% auburn or red, 30% light brown. They showed Caucasoid facial structure with high nasal bridges and deep-set eyes. Males averaged 180 centimetres tall, remarkably tall for the Bronze Age. Material culture added to the puzzle with woolen textiles, showing advanced weaving, tartan patterns matching Celtic designs, pointed felt hats resembling European styles, and the world's earliest preserved cheese. For decades, scholars debated their origin. Were they Indo-European speakers from the steppes? Lost Europeans who somehow reached Chinese deserts? Proto-Taharians, whose language survived into historical times? The 2021 Nature study, led by Dr. Xiaomei Fu from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, solved the mystery through comprehensive genomic analysis. The team analysed 33 individuals from multiple sites spanning 2,100 to 300 BCE, using whole genome sequencing with the highest quality DNA extracted. The results stunned the scientific community. These were not European migrants, not Indo-European speakers, not steppe populations. Instead, they were a local indigenous population descended from ancient North Eurasians, ANE, who had remained isolated for over 9,000 years since the Ice Age. Dr. Fu explained the significance. The Tarim mummies represent a population that split from other humans during the Ice Age and remained genetically isolated in their desert oasis, while participating fully in Bronze Age cultural exchanges. The ancient North Eurasian connection reveals deep history. AN populations lived in Siberia 24,000 years ago, contributed to Native Americans, contributed to Europeans, but mostly disappeared elsewhere. In the Tarim Basin, they survived as the ultimate genetic time capsule. Despite complete genetic isolation, they showed remarkable cultural openness. They adopted wheat from the Fertile Crescent around 3000 BCE, barley from the Near East, sheep and goats from Central Asia, cattle from multiple sources, bronze technology from Andronovo culture, and European weaving techniques. Yet they maintained complete genetic isolation with no intermarriage detected, a unique language, pre-Tocharian, distinct religious practices, and strong cultural identity. The population's fate appeared in later burials. By 800 BCE, the first outside admixture appeared. By 500 BCE, major demographic shifts occurred. By 200 BCE, the original population had become a minority. Today, modern Uyghurs carry 10 to 15% Tarim ancestry, the last genetic echo of this remarkable population. Perhaps the most revolutionary discoveries involve the Denisovans, an extinct human species known only from DNA. The original discovery in 2008 started with a single finger bone from Denisova Cave in Siberia's Altai Mountains. Too fragmentary for traditional analysis, DNA extraction revealed an entirely new human species, sister group to Neanderthals, that diverged 600,000 years ago. Additional finds slowly built the picture. Denisova 4 and 8 provided molar teeth. Most remarkably, Denisova 11, nicknamed Denny, proved to be a first-generation hybrid with a Denisovan father and Neanderthal mother. A mandible from Tibet dated to 160,000 years ago, and a tooth from Laos at 164,000 years expanded their known range. Modern humans carry Denisovan DNA in varying amounts. Papua New Guinea populations show 4 to 6%, Aboriginal Australians 4 to 5%, Melanesians 3 to 5%, Philippines Eta 5%, and some Indonesian groups 4%. This genetic legacy includes crucial adaptations. The EPAS1 gene story exemplifies adaptive introgression. This gene controls red blood cell production. The Denisovan variant prevents overproduction at altitude. It proves critical for survival above 4,000 meters. Today, 87% of Tibetans carry it, while 0% of lowland populations do. Natural selection made this archaic gene essential for modern humans. Dr. Rasmus Nielsen from UC Berkeley captured the significance. Tibetans survive at altitudes that would kill most humans thanks to a genetic gift from Denisovans. It's evolution by introgression, borrowing beneficial genes from another species. Other Denisovan adaptations appear worldwide. Immune system genes help fight parasites. Metabolism genes aid processing fats in cold climates. Skin and hair genes benefit Melanesian populations. Smell receptor genes enhance perception in various populations. The evidence suggests multiple Denisovan populations existed: Altai Denisovans in Siberia, Eastern Denisovans at unknown locations, Southern Denisovans in Southeast Asia, and possibly an oceanic group, each contributing different beneficial genes to modern humans. From isolated Ice Age populations in Chinese deserts to extinct humans whose genes still help us survive, ancient DNA reveals connections we never imagined. Our final investigations take us to the Americas and beyond, where impossible journeys and ghost populations complete our picture of humanity's hidden past. The Americas tell perhaps the most complex story revealed by ancient DNA. The traditional model seemed simple: a single migration 15,000 years ago through Beringia from Siberia, rapid expansion through the Americas, all Native Americans descending from one source. DNA evidence shatters this simplicity. The true picture involves multiple migrations at different times, various routes both coastal and inland, back migrations to Asia, major population replacements, and mysterious ghost populations contributing ancestry. The genetic evidence reveals ancient North Siberians as the primary source population, splitting around 24,000 years ago. One branch became Native Americans, while another became Northern Asians. But the Native American branch was not pure. It contained 70% ancient North Siberian ancestry, mixed with 30% ancient East Asian ancestry. This mixed population formed in Beringia during what scientists call the Beringian standstill. For 8,000 years, from 25,000 to 17,000 years ago, they remained isolated in Beringia as ice sheets blocked further movement. Population growth during isolation created unique genetic variants through drift. Multiple founding lineages emerged. After 16,000 years ago, rapid expansion finally began as ice retreated. Key ancient genomes illuminate this story. The Anzic boy from Montana, 12,600 years old and buried in Clovis culture style, proved ancestral to Central and South Americans, but not to northern groups. This suggests multiple routes south, with some groups bypassing northern territories entirely. Kennewick Man from Washington, 8,500 years old, created controversy when his skull suggested Polynesian features. DNA revealed he was fully Native American, closest to the Colville tribe, who eventually repatriated his remains in 2017. His case showed how physical appearance poorly predicts ancestry. Spirit Cave Mummy from Nevada, 10,600 years old, wore sophisticated textiles with diamond weave basketry. DNA confirmed Native American ancestry, but found no living descendants, evidence of population replacement over time. The Lagoa Santa Brazilians, 11,000 years old, showed distinct skull morphology that suggested African connections to early archaeologists. DNA revealed Native American ancestry, but with a crucial difference. They carried Australasian genetic components supporting the mysterious Population Y model. This Population Y represents one of ancient DNA's greatest mysteries. The Surui tribe in the Brazilian Amazon shows 1 to 2% Australasian ancestry found in no other Native Americans. This suggests an unknown Asian population contributed genes to some South Americans. When did they arrive? How did they reach South America? Why do they appear only in certain populations? These questions remain unanswered. Dr. David Reich from Harvard summarized the complexity. The peopling of the Americas was far more complex than any model predicted. Each ancient genome reveals new surprises. Ancient DNA also reveals how climate change has driven human populations throughout history. The 4.2 kilo-year event around 2200 BCE brought global drought lasting centuries. DNA evidence shows massive population movements as the Akkadian Empire collapsed, Indus Valley cities were abandoned, Egypt's Old Kingdom ended, and refugees fled, failing agricultural zones. The Bronze Age collapse around 1200 BCE saw Eastern Mediterranean civilizations fall simultaneously. DNA reveals population influx from the north as European droughts drove climate refugees south. The mysterious sea peoples, long debated by historians, may have been climate migrants rather than invaders. Even in historical times, climate-shaped genetics. Norse Greenland colonies, established in 985 CE, maintained 85% Norwegian ancestry, with minimal mixing with Inuit populations. Genetic isolation increased over time, with inbreeding evident in the final century. Climate change made farming impossible. The latest DNA shows no Native American admixture. The Norse died out rather than integrating. Complete abandonment by 1450 CE marked climate's final victory. These patterns repeat throughout prehistory. Climate change drives migration. Migration brings genetic mixing. New populations emerge with hybrid vigor, and the cycle continues. Ancient DNA reveals humanity as perpetual climate refugees, constantly adapting to environmental changes through movement and mixture. But evolution didn't stop in the past. DNA reveals ongoing human adaptation at unprecedented speed. The Tibetan Plateau shows the world's fastest evolution over the last 3,000 years. Beyond the Denisovan EPAS1 gene, EGLN1 gene variants spread rapidly, while HBB variants emerged independently. Each generation shows measurably better altitude adaptation. Arctic populations evolved their own cold adaptations. Brown fat genes underwent selection. Metabolic adaptations allow efficient processing of marine mammal diets. Vitamin D synthesis enhanced to compensate for low sunlight. Cold shock proteins increased. These changes occurred within 1,000 years of Arctic settlement. Lactase persistence, the ability to digest milk as adults, evolved independently at least 5 times. Europe developed one mutation 5,000 years ago. Africa evolved 3 different mutations in different populations. The Middle East and India each developed separate variants. Cultural practice of dairying drove genetic evolution in real time. Disease resistance shows similar rapid evolution. Malaria alone drove multiple adaptations. Sickle cell mutations arose independently in Africa and India. Thalassemias emerged in Southeast Asia. G6PD deficiency spread through Africa and the Mediterranean, and dozens of other variants provided partial protection. Each represents evolution, responding to disease pressure within historical time. The COVID-19 pandemic revealed how ancient genes affect modern disease. Neanderthal DNA on chromosome 3 increases COVID severity. 50% of South Asians carry this risk variant compared to 16% of Europeans, and near absence in East Asians. Another Neanderthal variant on chromosome 12 provides protection. Ancient admixture created modern disease susceptibility patterns. Dr. Sarah Tishkoff from the University of Pennsylvania captured the implications. Humans are evolving faster now than any time in our history. Ancient DNA shows this process accelerating whenever we face new challenges. Let's review what we've discovered through this investigation. Pompeii's DNA evidence overturns 150 years of interpretation. The supposed mother and child were unrelated males. The embracing sisters were two young men. The fleeing family were strangers who died together. Genetic analysis reveals Pompeii's cosmopolitan population with Eastern Mediterranean origins, challenging every assumption about family relationships and gender. Traditional archaeological interpretation based on positioning and appearance proved entirely unreliable. Viking genetic diversity shatters stereotypes. Viking identity was cultural, not ethnic, proved by Pictish Orcadians with Norse graves. Local populations adopted Viking material culture wholesale while maintaining their genetics. The Salme ship tragedy revealed 4 brothers dying together in Estonia, an entire Swedish community's young men lost in one day. Only 30% of Vikings were blonde, with brown hair most common. Female warriors existed, but were rare. Modern nationalist Viking imagery bears no resemblance to historical reality. Ancient plague DNA rewrites disease history. Plague struck Europe 3,000 years earlier than believed, causing Neolithic population collapse around 2,900 BCE. The bacterium evolved during the Black Death itself, becoming less lethal but more transmissible. Plague reached ancient Egypt by 1290 BCE, suddenly explaining mysterious medical papyrus descriptions. Trade routes that brought prosperity also brought death on civilization-changing scales. Egyptian mummy genetics reveals surprising truths. Ancient Egyptians were genetically closer to ancient Europeans and Near Easterners than to modern Egyptians. The Manchester Museum brothers were half-brothers, revealing ancient inheritance fraud. A major demographic shift after 400 CE, not gradual change, created modern Egyptian genetics. Royal inbreeding, foreign queens, and murdered pharaohs emerge from DNA evidence. Individual mummies, like Takabuti, reveal immigrants fully adopting Egyptian culture. Tarim basin discoveries challenge all assumptions. A 9,000-year Ice Age population survived in complete genetic isolation while adopting every cultural innovation from surrounding peoples. These ancient North Eurasian descendants maintained genetic purity while embracing wheat cultivation, bronze technology, and foreign weaving techniques. They prove culture and genes can be completely disconnected. Global genetic mysteries multiply with each discovery. Denisovan DNA provides high-altitude adaptation to Tibetans and cold adaptation to Arctic peoples. Multiple Denisovan populations existed, each contributing different beneficial genes. American migrations involved multiple waves, ghost populations and back migrations far more complex than any model predicted. Climate change drove ancient populations just as it threatens modern ones. These discoveries fundamentally transform archaeological interpretation. Material culture cannot determine biological relationships, proven repeatedly from Pompeii to Orkney. Burial positioning reveals nothing about social relationships. Strangers died embracing while families died apart. Grave goods don't indicate gender or status. Women buried as warriors, men wearing feminine jewelry. Physical appearance cannot predict ancestry. European-looking Tarim mummies were Asian. African-looking Lagoa Santa people were Native American. Written records may contain deliberate lies. Egyptian brothers who weren't, Viking sagas mixing myth with reality. This evidence demands new integrated approaches. DNA analysis has become essential for population studies. Isotope analysis reveals lifetime movements invisible in genetics. Pathogen DNA explains demographic changes archaeology alone cannot. Environmental DNA recovers lost ecosystems. Protein analysis works when DNA fails. Multiple lines of evidence prevent misinterpretation. History books require fundamental revision. Population movements were far more complex than traditional models suggested. Cultural identity never equaled genetic ancestry, from Viking Picts to Egyptian immigrants. Disease impacts have been systematically underestimated throughout history. Climate change drove more migrations than all wars combined. Human diversity exceeded our wildest assumptions. Ancient peoples were more interconnected, more mobile, and more adaptable than we ever imagined. These findings demonstrate how 21st century technology transforms our understanding of the past. Current capabilities include extracting DNA from 400,000-year-old specimens, sequencing complete genomes from fragments, identifying species from cave sediments alone, tracking pathogen evolution through time, revealing ghost populations from statistical signals, and reconstructing appearance from genetic markers. Emerging technologies promise even more revolutionary discoveries. AI-powered genome reconstruction fills gaps in degraded DNA. Non-destructive extraction preserves precious specimens. Field-deployable sequencers enable real-time analysis. Single-cell sequencing reveals individual life histories. Epigenetic marks show lifestyle, diet, and trauma. Microbiome analysis reveals diet and health in extraordinary detail. Critical questions remain for future research. How many ghost populations contributed to modern humans? What diseases shaped human evolution beyond plague and malaria? How did ancient trade networks actually function genetically? When did modern population structures emerge? How will climate change relocate future populations? What surprises await in unexplored regions? The next decade's targets span the globe. Sub-Saharan African sites remain tragically underrepresented despite being humanity's homeland. Australian Aboriginal DNA promises to reveal 65,000 years of isolation and adaptation. Prehistoric Pacific Islands hold secrets of impossible voyages. Central Asian Silk Road sites document history's greatest trade network. Pre-Columbian Americas hide complex civilizations. Even Antarctic seal mummies preserved in ice await analysis. But science cannot proceed without ethics. Indigenous consultation must be mandatory, not optional. Descendant communities deserve involvement in research about their ancestors. Data sovereignty requires careful consideration. Repatriation protocols must be respected. Benefit sharing ensures research helps living communities. Publication requires permissions from all stakeholders. The artifacts don't lie. The evidence speaks for itself. Human history is far more complex, interconnected, and surprising than traditional archaeology revealed. These DNA studies don't diminish archaeological work. They enhance it immeasurably. By adding genetic evidence to material culture, historical records, and scientific dating, we build a more complete, more accurate, more human picture of the past. Each discipline contributes crucial pieces to the puzzle. Every assumption we've held requires re-examination. Every narrative needs verification. Every interpretation must consider genetic evidence. The past isn't what we thought. It's far more interesting. Dr. Johannes Krause, director of the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, summarized perfectly. Ancient DNA doesn't replace archaeology. It makes archaeology more powerful. Together, they reveal truths no single discipline could uncover alone. We're not rewriting history, we're discovering it for the first time. The investigation reveals humanity's true story, not separate populations developing in isolation, but a complex web of migration, mixture, adaptation, and survival. We are all descendants of climate refugees, plague survivors, and cultural innovators who refuse to be confined by geography or genetics. Modern humans carry within ourselves the story of these ancient journeys, Neanderthal genes that help or harm us, Denisovan adaptations that let us survive extremes, ghost population contributions we're still discovering, ancient plague resistance, ongoing evolution in response to diet, climate, and disease. We are living libraries of human history, each genome a manuscript waiting to be read. This investigation changes how we see ourselves. Race appears as a recent social construct with no deep genetic meaning. Pure populations never existed. Humans have always mixed. Culture spreads independently of genes. Climate refugees aren't modern phenomena, but humanity's constant state. Disease shaped us as much as environment. We're still evolving faster than ever before. The implications cascade into the future. As climate change accelerates, will we see population movements exceeding anything in the past? Will new diseases drive rapid evolution as plague and malaria did? How will genetic engineering interact with natural selection? What will human populations look like in 1,000 years? 10,000 years? Ancient DNA provides not just windows into the past, but warnings for the future. Every civilization that seemed permanent eventually moved or transformed. Every population that seemed isolated eventually mixed. Every adaptation that seemed fixed eventually changed. The only constant in human history is change itself. What do you think about these discoveries? Does this evidence convince you that we need to reconsider everything we thought we knew about ancient peoples? Which revelation surprised you most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Consider how these findings change your understanding of human history. Do you see your own ancestry differently? Does knowing about ancient climate refugees change how you view modern migrations? How does evidence of rapid human evolution affect your view of our species' future? If you want to see more archaeological investigations like this, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Every week, we dig deeper into history's mysteries, following evidence wherever it leads. No assumption is safe. No narrative goes unexamined. No mystery remains buried forever. Join our investigation community at theartifactsdetective.com. Share this video with others who question mainstream narratives. Together, we're uncovering truths buried for millennia. Uncover more ancient mysteries. Follow the Artifacts Detective and join the investigation. They buried the evidence. We dug it up. And what we found challenges every assumption about ancient civilizations. Through systematic archaeological investigation enhanced by DNA analysis, we've revealed truths that transform our understanding of human history. From Pompeii's misidentified victims to Vikings who weren't Scandinavian, from prehistoric plagues to Egyptian genetic mysteries, from impossible populations in Chinese deserts to ghost ancestors in our own DNA. Each discovery shatters another myth. But this investigation represents just the beginning. Each archaeological excavation now carries potential for genetic revelation. Each museum collection might harbor DNA secrets. Each assumption awaits scientific verification. The past is not fixed. It's a mystery waiting to be solved. The evidence demands we abandon outdated narratives and embrace complexity. Ancient peoples moved more, mixed more, and adapted more than we ever imagined. They faced climate catastrophes, survived devastating plagues, and built sophisticated multicultural societies. Their DNA tells stories that artifacts alone could never reveal. We stand at the threshold of an archaeological revolution. As technology advances and more sites yield their genetic secrets, we'll continue uncovering truths that challenge, surprise, and inspire. The human story is being rewritten one genome at a time. Consider what these discoveries mean for our future. If ancient humans adapted to challenges through migration and mixing, what does that suggest for addressing modern climate change? If diseases shaped our evolution in the past, how might modern pandemics affect our descendants? If cultural identity transcended genetics in ancient times, what does that mean for modern concepts of race and ethnicity? The Artifacts Detective will continue investigating these mysteries. Because in archaeology, evidence is always there, buried in teeth and bones, hidden in soil and stone, waiting for technology and determination to reveal its secrets. Every museum specimen might hold revolutionary data. Every excavation could overturn accepted history. Every DNA sequence adds another piece to humanity's vast puzzle. Our next investigations promise even more stunning revelations. What secrets hide in the permafrost of Siberia? What will Pacific Island DNA reveal about impossible voyages? How did Africa's diverse populations really emerge? When will we finally crack the code of human language evolution? The questions multiply faster than we can answer them. Until our next investigation, remember, question every narrative, examine all evidence, and always dig deeper. The truth is down there, waiting to be discovered. Challenge assumptions. Demand evidence. Think critically about every historical claim. Thank you for joining this investigation into humanity's hidden past. You've seen how DNA evidence overturns centuries of assumptions. You've learned how ancient peoples were more diverse, more connected, and more adaptable than traditional history claimed. You've discovered that we carry within ourselves the genetic legacy of these ancient survivors. Share your own questions and theories. What archaeological mysteries would you like us to investigate? What assumptions about the past do you think need challenging? What evidence would convince you to change your views about human history? Remember to subscribe for weekly archaeological investigations. Hit the notification bell to join us the moment new evidence emerges. Share this video with fellow truth seekers. Leave a comment with your thoughts on these DNA revelations. Join our growing community of citizen archaeologists who refuse to accept simple answers to complex questions. Together, we're not just learning history, we're discovering it for the first time. Every person who questions accepted narratives, who demands evidence, who thinks critically about the past, helps build a more accurate understanding of humanity's story. The past has more secrets to reveal, and together, we'll uncover them all. Because at the Artifacts Detective, we believe the truth is always worth digging for, no matter how deep it's buried or how long it's been hidden. This is the Artifacts Detective, signing off. Keep questioning. Keep investigating. Keep digging. They buried the evidence, we dig it up, and the truth changes everything. Until next time, fellow investigators, the past is calling, and we must answer.